Thank you very much, Rosie, and it is my honor to be part of, to curate this program and to work with the team of the Cinematheque and of GOMA. So good morning, everyone. I would like to start today's talk with a very fun clip, a clip that shows the joy of cinema, of making cinema and of appreciating what is possible through cinema. This is a scene from Old Rosalinda, and we're seeing this British major played by Dennis Price. Obviously, he's drunk from a party. We may stop here because the story goes on, but you get the gist. It might be quite routine to show double vision to describe or to represent intoxication. But Powell Pressburger had two actors, but also two dogs, standing next to each other, doing and saying exactly the same thing at the same time to present a double vision. So you may consider the trick as being theatrical, and that's precisely the point. Powell Pressburger firmly believed in cinema as the synthesis of all arts: literature, painting, music, theater, dance, design, cinematography. Michael Powell said in his autobiography, "All art is one." In quoting Rudyard Kipling, whose works had a strong impact on him, he expressed his and Pressburger's shared ambition for cinema, the consummation of all artistic elements forming an organic whole. In their most celebrated works, there is a beautiful blend of the cinematic and the theatrical, and of all arts. So let's explore this through a distinctive feature in their cinema, the presence of magical spaces. The magical space in Powell Pressburger's films very often is an avenue into the human psyche. The great film critic André Bazin wrote, "Cinema, before any artistic concern, is there to meet our repressed, indefeasible collective psychic needs." And in the scholar James Ormond's words, Bazin also discussed cinema as possessing the possibility of expressing visibly something invisible, both within and beyond representation. Particularly in the most celebrated Technicolor films of Powell Pressburger, namely A Matter of Life and Death, The Red Shoes, Black Narcissus, and The Tales of Hoffmann, what is represented on screen often speaks to something that is more invisible in the eyes, but not necessarily less visible in the characters' minds. They all find themselves in and out of dreamy states or magical spaces, and in and through that, they experience some kind of transformation, realization, or are transfixed. We will discuss the presentation and construction of such magical spaces, which are often a blend of realism and fantasy. The cinema of Powell Pressburger is firmly grounded in reality. This is most notable in their pre-war black and white films, as we show at the top, the slides at the top, due to an urgency to respond to the current climate during the wartime, Second World War. Naturally, there was an intention to build their stories around war themes, although we were also exposed to their taste for the fantastical and mystical in films like The Life and Death of Colonel Blimp, A Canterbury Tale, or I Know Where I'm Going. Their stories are grounded on reality, and yet distinguished in the way they render, imagine, and transcend reality. The clip we just saw is a very good example. In the 40s and 50s, realism or naturalism was the predominant aesthetic in British cinema. But Powell would say in many interviews he didn't believe in these, or it's not really his vision. Powell and Pressburger, aimed to achieve a heightened reality. Let's look at this magical dance sequence in The Tales of Hoffmann. Now, you can see the stairs are really just 2D. So the film's production designer, Hein Hackcroft, he was asked to create a massive staircase for this scene. But when he told Michael Powell, oh, this is going to cost dearly, Powell asked him to paint the stairs on the floor. And then he filmed the dance scene from an elevated angle. With this ingenious design and the manipulation of perspective, the dancers do end up looking like they were dancing in a deep 3D space, although it was absolutely completely two-dimensional. This creativity and ability to think outside of the box, and in very cinematic terms, is characteristic of Powell Pressburger. What may seem like an odd imagery fits completely logically into the story world. In the case of this film, and in this segment, it is about the illusion of love fabricated by magical power. So an artificial and surrealistic staircase fits right into the story. I'd like to show you one more scene from, this is another segment from the Tales of Hoffmann. This is the tale of Giulietta. In this scene, Giulietta is to seduce Hoffmann and to capture his soul. So by using the simple trick, by simply filming the mirror and using the trick of editing, sort of a dissolve, seeing Hoffmann slowly disappearing from the mirror, Powell Pressburger is showing this very magical moment. This dissolving effect is similar to the transition between monochrome and color in A Matter of Life and Death. But we will go back to stairs. Now let's look at another staircase in another film, A Matter of Life and Death.
By the way, why are you so interested in my winning my case? Yes, you.
So in this film, the stairs connecting heaven and earth is a reference to Jacob's ladder, as we know. The real model of this moving staircase consists of 106 steps and was operated by a motor. Once again, through the manipulation of perspective and editing, and also the use of painting, look at the matte painting on either side of the stairs. So using these tricks, it looks like the stairs spans to infinity in both ways. Look at the matte painting on either side. It blends into the story in a way that Peter Carter, in reality, is going through a critical brain surgery and is literally on the verge of life and death. The magical space now is an avenue into the human psyche in the way that we're face to face with Peter Carter's subconsciousness, his anxiety, and fear that he will be collected to the other world at any time. Now, this is the set of A Matter of Life and Death. So you can see that's what the stairs are like. But in the film, it looks like a much bigger and much longer stairs. In the Tales of Hoffmann, the surreal, hallucinatory dance between Hoffmann and Stella, the first clip that we watched, Stella is played very superbly by Maura Schirra. The dance draws Hoffmann deeply in love, and the descending of the stair has that symbolic significance of him falling into a different mental state. In another film, The Red Shoes, the hyperreal representation of a spiral staircase taps into a completely different psychological rhyme. Vicky's running down the staircase communicates to us of her being taken over by the red shoes, and that she is approaching the verge of a nervous breakdown. Through this magical space, we're taken into the depth of her psyche. Powell thought that it would be very dull if she just rushed down some steps. So he invented that spiral staircase in the scene that enhances the intensity of the shot. During the shoot, Moira Shura, she was running very, very fast, so fast that the camera could not catch up with her. So the camera team came up with the idea of mounting the spiral case as the spiral staircase on a circular platform. So as she is running down, they were also turning the platform so that they could finally catch up the pace and create that shot. But guess what? When the shot is finished, when it came out, the duration was too short. So in the editing room, the take was printed twice and put together, like what you've seen. So if you haven't seen the film, pay attention. If you're going to see the film again, please pay attention and look for the cut in this scene. The manipulation of shooting speed is also a distinctive feature in Michael Powell and Pressburger's films. And it has, of course, influenced how one of his admirers, Martin Scorsese, how he approached cinema, and of course also Scorsese's editor, Thelma Schoonmaker, who became Powell's wife, of course. Here is what Powell said: 24 frames per second is a totally arbitrary speed. I always try to shoot scenes at different speeds, even dialogue scenes, anything from 10 to 29. Although, of course, you know it will be projected at 24 frames per second. But every shot has its own viewpoint, its own pace, its own mood. We didn't shoot Moira at normal speed in her dancing scenes on stage. It was 18 or 19. And you can see also many examples, particularly in the Tales of Hoffman. And in another interview, he also mentioned that not just movements or dance, he also sometimes manipulated shooting speed with dialogue. From what I can see, say maybe in A Matter of Life and Death, there might be a manipulation of that, because David Niven, I think, speaks very fast. Are you correct? And then on the other hand, Dr. Reeve, played by Roger Livesey, he speaks very slow and kind and gently. I think there might be some magic in that. Now, I'd like to show two more very short clips from The Red Shoes, in which we see a combination of realistic and unrealistic spaces. In the first one, on the stage, we're seeing Vicky and Vicky's vision, which is a reflection of her unsettling mind in the height of her artistic achievement. And in the second, we delve from the stage into her inner psyche. It is an enchanting mix of ecstasy and anxiety, and it is presented in a combination of theatrical and cinematic spaces. Now, I'd like us to look at another form of steps and stairs. In Black Narcissus, a film that we're about to see this afternoon, in this film, a group of British nuns is sent to the Himalayas to set up a school and dispensary. All of these nuns find the deep emotions and desires awaken or shaken when they arrive at the foreign, exotic place. I'm not going to give spoiler. At the very end of the film, both Sister Claudia, played by Deborah Carr, and Sister Ruth, Kathleen Barron, find themselves transfixed in this magical space. In fact, in the lead up to it. Oh, you have to watch the film to find out what happens. Black Narcissus is adapted from the novel by English author Ruma Golden, who herself grew up in Bangladesh, and who is also the original author of Jean Renoir's The River. With the story set in the Himalayas, Powell Pressburger made the bold decision to film the entire film in studios, with specifically designed and built sets and the use of matte paintings. There is only one scene shot on location in a garden in England. Please see, look at these stills and see how that bell, which we just saw, the bell appears to be on the edge of a high cliff, but it was actually built very close to the ground. And the stunning effect is created by matte painting along with the set, as you can see in the two stills in the middle. So, and the matte painting is thanks to the beautiful work of Percy Day. He's a very famous matte painter and worked very closely and ongoingly with Powell Pressburger. In fact, most of Powell Pressburger's cast and crew are all regulars. We will get to that later in this talk, if we have time. On the far right of this slide, you can also see two stills that demonstrate the effect of matte paintings in creating the otherworldly feeling of an imaginary world. On top of that, the cinematographer Jack Cardiff, renowned for his works with Powell Pressburger's Technicolor films, used fog filters, color filters, and diffused lighting to create that eerie atmosphere. And that was quite unusual for Technicolor films. In fact, he had to discuss with the Technicolor lab to get them across, letting him use fog filters at the very end. And all that was to enhance the effect of the unfamiliarity and strangeness of the film. I would like to conclude the discussion of stairs with one final clip. I think it's important to show this clip because it's the black and white film, a very, very great film. And although it looks more realistic than anything we've seen before, but I think there's something very magical here. This is A Canterbury Tale. In A Canterbury Tale, each of the modern pilgrims finds their wish miraculously fulfilled when they finally reach Canterbury. In this magnificent scene, which also involves a staircase, the British officer, also played by Dennis Price, the actor we see in the very first clip. He was once an organist, but he has to give up his profession because of the war. He becomes a soldier. But when he climbs up the stairs, we may stop here due to timing, but please go watch this film if you haven't yet. Wonderful film. And what's magical is when he climbs up the stairs, he's once again with something that's so dear to him, the organ. And actually, he's invited by the organist to play the organ. Really beautiful. But also, he's led by this missing piece of musical sheet. So this music notes, So this notes, it almost looks like a little fairy leading his way to something magical. I think it's real and magical at the same time. We move on to the next topic, cinema as the synthesis of all arts. As we said at the beginning, Powell said, all art is one. Powell Pressburger had a shared ambition for cinema, the consummation of all elements forming an organic whole. Let's begin with color. Color plays a key role not only in the visual sense, but also in a psychological and conceptual sense. The expressive use of colors highlights the character's psychological and emotional state. If we look at the use of red, for example, in these three films, the illusions are layered. Red symbolizes passion, desire, danger, and eroticism, sometimes all at the same time. The bold and sophisticated color scheme in The Tales of Hoffmann further testifies to how they work to make color speak. Now, in this film, Hein Hancroft, again, the production designer, he adopts three different color schemes for the mood and tone for each of the three segments. Yellow for a comical and fantastical segment, the tale of Olympia, and purple for a flamboyant, extravagant, and haunting segment, the tale of Julieta. And then blue for a melancholic and fateful segment, the tale of Antonia. Another uniquely Powell experiment was his artistic vision for the composed film. That is, filming to a pre-recorded score using the rhythm and the tone of the music to guide the movements. Powell pursued this idea for the first time in a sequence towards the end of Black Narcissus, part of which we have seen earlier. And he attempted it again in the 16-minute ballet performance sequence in the Red Shoes. He finally realized this vision with the Tales of Hoffmann. The soundtrack of the entire film was pre-recorded, and Powell found that he only needed to focus on the movements of the actors and camera, without any concerns for sound recording. For him, the experience was like making a silent film. When he was growing up, he worked with Rex Ingram, one of the giants of silent cinema. And also Pressburger, he used to work at the UFA, the prestigious German studio, which released a lot of the German silent films, the best of them, More Now, Fritz Lang, and Lubitsch. So they both actually have a very classical training, and the strong visual sense of their films would have been influenced by their exposure to silent cinema. In the Tales of Hoffmann, Powell also, I think maybe like Lermontov in the Red Shoes, was able to bring together the most reputed musicians together in production. Not just musicians, but musicians, conductor, dancers, choreographers, and opera singers, all of them into the production. And they're all leading practitioners in their own professions. So the whole film indeed is the synthesis of all arts. But since we're not able to show the entire film now, let's instead watch a segment of the ballet sequence in the Red Shoes as an example of the synthesis. Please pay attention to the hand-painted and crafted sets, the shift from different spaces, the change of depth, the change of tone and lighting, the change of points of view, and also the roles of editing and matte painting. The ballet sequence as a whole is the result of multiple elements coming together: music, dance, theater, lighting, costume, design, and on top of that, cinematography and editing. And taking one step further, the film is about art and every element that goes into it. It is about the beauty as well as the frightening power of art, the heart and labor that go into a creative work. Two equivalent films that present a similarly sophisticated take on art, creative labor and collaborative work, Jean Renoir's French Cancan and Vincent Minnelli's The Bandwagon. Both of them are my favorite films too. But they're also both filmed in Technicolor, and both feature an exhilarating dance sequence. Great films. Now, the carnival quality in some of the moments in the ballet sequence in the Red Shoes reminds us of The Mask. In discussing the predilection for fantastical stories, Powell Emeric Pressburger scholar Ian Christie very aptly pointed out that A Matter of Life and Death is a reinvention of The Mask. We can easily also include Black Narcissus, The Red Shoes, The Tales of Hoffmann, and O Rosalinda. The Mask is a form of festive spectacle that was popular in aristocratic and court circles in Europe during the 16th and early 17th century. It is a combination of verse drama, dance, music, scenery, and costume. It also usually involves elaborate stage design in which the architectural framing and costumes might be designed by a renowned architect to present a deferential allegory flattering to the patron. According to Christie, masks were usually allegorical with a mythological scenario which could also be read in terms of contemporary politics. In A Matter of Life and Death, before Peter Carter meets Dr. Reeves, if you remember in the film, we see a group of people rehearsing Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream. These are some two illustrations of two Shakespeare's plays, The Midsummer Night's Dream and The Tempest. Both of these plays involve a mask performance in it. And Christie, in his BFI book on A Matter of Life and Death, draws comparison between the film and A Midsummer Night's Dream. These two Shakespearean plays, as I said, do happen to have mask performances as part of them. With Powell Pressburger's classical background and Pressburger's meticulousness in his scripts, these references surely are not coincidence. So these are some of the obvious Powell and Pressburger moments that call to mind the quality of mask. And of course, the two of them are really thinking cinema as a whole and in terms of color, music, movement, space, and depth. I was going to talk about O Rosalinda as a very special film, but maybe very quickly. I would like to make a mention because it may not be the most reputed film and maybe a little light, but it's nonetheless a marvelous work. This opera musical about Anton Warburg's socialite playing a practical joke on a married couple is deliciously funny and entertaining, but most importantly, it is replete with imagination and the love for cinema. The first CinemaScope film by Powell and Pressburger is mostly shot against hand-painted decor, as you can see. Some deliberately look like sketches. Only the two of them can make such artificial decor look so perfectly natural and elegant against the actual sets and human actors. A world that is a construction, but also has an organic real life of its own. But more importantly, the way Anton Warburg must use all sorts of tricks, invent stories, play with timing, space, and disguises to bring pieces together to throw a good party and to complete his joke. It really is a commentary of cinema, of constructing a narrative, of achieving make-believe, and of the fun of it all. So I think it's a very special film among their filmography. Which brings us to the next point. What Powell and Pressburger represent is a modernist approach to cinema. As we have discussed in the examples, they tirelessly tried to reinvent and push the boundaries of the cinema. Like I said, Powell, in his formative years, as a filmmaker, he was working with the giants of silent cinema, and likewise for Pressburger. So we've talked about the strong visual sense. But also I would like to talk a bit about their background. They were brought together by another Hungarian migrant, a very significant figure in the British industry of their time, Alexander Korda, the founder of Denim Studios, and the mastermind behind such great fantasy work as The Thief of Baghdad, among others. The rapport between Powell and Pressburger was immediate. They saw in each other the perfect creative partner and working companion. I will check this fact against Kevin Powell later. After working together as director and screenwriter for 3 films, they formalized their creative partnership by setting up their own production company, the Audacious, and began using the shared credits, written, produced, and directed by Michael Powell and Emeric Pressburger. For a very moving war effort, one of our aircrafts is missing. This partnership lasted until the Audacious' last production, Ill Met by Moonlight. The title, by the way, is also taken, as you know, from Shakespeare, from The Tempest. The share credits that they used were a commitment to honoring their organic creative process and mutual input. It was unique and unprecedented in the history of cinema. And as independent filmmakers, it was also their way to ensure that they can retain their creative freedom. In Powell's words, they call themselves producers to keep other people calling themselves producers of their films. Powell, being the typical British man, was quick-witted and had a great sense of humor. As for Pressburger, it is important to note his sensibility as an immigrant. I need to mention that I need to add the fact. So Pressburger was a Hungarian Jew. He moved to Germany to study and work, and then he worked in the UFA studios, as I mentioned. But on the rise of Nazism in 1933, the UFA discontinued the employment of all of their Jewish employees. And at that moment, Pressburger realized that it was time for him to go. So he moved in 1933 from Germany to England. It is important to note his sensibility as an immigrant and an exile from Nazi Germany, whose reflectiveness and romanticism have informed many of their works and serve to complement or sometimes counter Powell's bold and irreverent approaches. It is this blend of 2 sensibilities from 2 cultures that made their collaborations so distinctive and sometimes eccentric. They can be characteristically British and subversive of British norms at the same time. Powell and Pressburger's cinema really is about such a mix of different or sometimes even contradictory sensibilities. As classicists, they're also incredibly radical and non-conforming. About this mix of multiple sensibilities is probably best represented in their centerpiece, a very rich film, The Life and Death of Colonel Blimp. It is an epic examination of national identity, imperialism, army politics. It also reflects on romance, friendship, and the search for lost time. It is at once a comedy and a tragedy. It mocks the old and the new at the same time, but it cherishes the good values they each embody. So it really is this synergy of multiple or even contradictory energies that is emblematic of the forces in Powell and Pressburger. And I have prepared to talk about some of their regular collaborators because they also, I think the fact that they cherish their own collaboration also extends to how they cherish and embrace the collaborations of their regular crew and cast, of course. But you've seen the faces of the cast. Now let's see their crew. They do work with, they do keep working with the people who share the same ambition as them. Although very quickly, for example, at the beginning, they worked more with Alfred Junger. But by the time they finished, I think, Black Narcissus, Alfred Junger thought that they were going really too extreme and too painterly. So later on, Hein Hancroft, for example, took the reign and became their chief production designer. The highly organized collaboration has ensured such consistency across most of their films. They are artistically sophisticated, technically inventive, and psychologically complex. We have run out of time to dive deeper into the black and white films, but I really encourage you to catch them. This is a rare chance to see all of their collaborations and in very, very good prints. I'm sure you will find other forms of mystical space and magical presence in those films. I didn't put a caption on the picture on the right. It's actually a photo on the set of A Matter of Life and Death. You see Michael Powell sitting next to the light and under the camera. On top of him is Jack Cardiff, and Christopher Charles is just behind Jack Cardiff, under the cameraman, if that makes sense. So all of the films we discussed today, in fact, all the films in the program are still being shown in the Cinematheque until the end of April. Please make sure you catch as many as possible. I would like to end today's talk with a quote from Shakespeare's The Tempest, which I think evokes the magical quality in Powell Pressburger's imaginative worlds. We are such stuff as dreams are made on, and our little life is rounded with a sleep. And visually, I have a little gift to share with you. I would like to end this talk with a beautiful, naturalistic, and yet kind of surrealistic scene from one of their early masterpieces. I know where I'm going. But before we play the clip, I'd like to remind you to please hang around, because at 1 o'clock I will be speaking to Kevin Powell, the son of Michael Powell. And after the talk, we have the screening of Black Narcissus in a newly struck, restored 35mm print. Very, very beautiful. I'd like to thank Rosie and Jerry, who assisted me with running the presentation today, and also Josh and Rosetta for filming, and all the staff at the Cinematheque. Thank you, and thanks, Amanda. Thank you for coming, Kevin. Now, let's look at this last magical space that I'd like to share with you. Chained by the woman he loves. Thank you.